Internet Cafe Simulator, another one of those poorly developed, unfinished games with terrible graphics and janky controls. Or is it? Could this be the simulator game that breaks the horseshit mold that seems to fester around these types of games? Or is it just another one we need to shovel up and add to the steaming shit pile? Stick around if you're interested in finding out if this simulator is worth your time and money. Honestly, unsurprisingly, we're going to tear into this one in many ways, but you might be surprised at the overall outcome when all is said and done. My name's Dav and welcome to D&DGaming. Joining me in the review as always is my brother Dale. So Dale, what were your expectations before playing this one?
I certainly didn't have high expectations going into this and fully expected it to be an asset grab scam game that might try and install a virus on my system. Luckily it didn't turn out to be quite that bad, but I was about half right with my expectations.
Yeah, so before playing this, I knew it was going to be one of those games that could go either way, as these simulator games always do. It could either be an awesome in-depth simulator going into every aspect of running an internet cafe, or barely scratch the surface simulator where it blends other focus points into the game. This one kind of sits more in the latter, and I'll go into that more in a moment.
So in terms of graphic options, you have the full range of, well, basically one option here. You can change the quality. You can also change the resolution, but you can expect this in basically any game.
So in terms of graphics and graphics performance, well, we'll put our PC specs up on screen as usual, but the game ran well on my PC on the ultra graphics setting, the one setting you can change with no frame drops. The graphics themselves are pretty terrible, and the animation of the NPCs really is something to behold. Heads and limbs half hanging off bodies, really bad pathfinding, and just a strange mix of characters are just some of the terrible graphic related issues in this game. Some of the scales of items are well off too. I mean, look at this mouse compared to the keyboard. It's a huge mouse, and these two chairs, the black one looks way too small.
I also ran it on ultra, although the graphics certainly aren't much to look at. Nothing really looks any good at all, to be honest, as everything has poor textures and animations. You can tell immediately that it's a half-assed attempt and essentially just unfinished with no polish at all.
So in terms of play controls, it's simply we're sad to move around, holding shift to move faster, E to interact with very few items you can actually interact with, and spacebar to start up the main PC. But from here, things just go from bad to worse, and you can't rebind your keys, so you're stuck with the default. An example of the bad controls is just trying to place an item such as a desk. So you pick it up with E, and then it's left mouse button to put it down, or right mouse button to throw it. So obviously you're setting up a desk, so you're not going to throw it across the room, you want to put it down. So you click the left mouse button to put it down, you get the rotation function appear with Q and R to rotate, and that's all fine. But just when you think all is going to plan, the mouse button to put the item down has switched from the left mouse button in the previous part of the function to the right mouse button in this part of the function. Say you come to place a PC case on the desk and accidentally click the right mouse button as you did in the previous part of the function, the PC case ends up thrown against a wall, or worse still, smashes into another PC that you've just spent ages setting up. It's fucking frustrating. I lost count of the number of times I'd set PCs up, and then whilst setting another one up, the items have accidentally gone flying across the room and I've had to reset everything up again. It's ridiculously easy to make the mistake over and over again, even once you know the issue is there, and you have to spend time thinking through the buttons to ensure you don't make the mistake again. The worst part of it is I can't work out whether the developer's trolling everyone by setting up and switching the controls in this way. It doesn't make any sense. And whilst we're on the subject of controls, what the hell is with having to set the mouse sensitivity every time you load up the game from save points? I get doing this the first time, but then it should remember your setting once you save. Again, just a very weird thing.
Yeah, so the controls are fairly standard for the most part, but as Dav mentioned, the placing of objects is really fucking janky and frustrating. It should be a simple part of the game, but they somehow managed to entirely mess it up.
So in terms of game mode and mechanics, there's just one main mode that you play in. You wake up in an apartment, there's nothing to interact with other than a bed and an alarm clock, which all you can do is switch the alarm clock off. Oh, the other thing is the main door of the apartment, of course, which opens so fast that you easily get stuck behind it. You head outside to find a building in which you set up your internet cafe. No choice of location or anything, just nestled amongst the market stalls, pawn shops and strip clubs. You then set about setting up your cafe. You use the PC in the shop to buy components online that are delivered as packages dropping out of the sky onto a pallet outside your shop. Pick them up and take them in and start building the workstations. At first, limited funds means you can only afford the more basic items, but gradually as you earn more money with customers through the door, you can begin to buy better components. As you set up a desk, a head-up display appears above the desk telling you which items are required, and once you have all these items on the desk, people will be able to use the PC. The main PC in the shop controls everything for the cafe, including purchasing items to kit out your cafe, buying cryptocurrency, paying bills, and many other functions. As you place and set up the PCs, customers that are wandering around in bad path-finding circles outside will begin to somehow find their way into your cafe and will sit down at one of the computers. Once they're finished either playing a game or watching porn, they'll jump up and head towards the exit. If they feel like it, they'll pay as they walk out, which automatically gets added to your funds. If they don't feel like paying, they just walk out and a sound alerts you to the fact that they haven't paid, along with a cross icon above their head. This is where you can either decide to purchase a bodyguard to avoid people leaving without paying, or take matters into your own hands by twatting them with a baseball bat. And you get the money they should have paid added to your funds. However, you do need to be careful when swinging the bat around. If you hit someone that has paid already or hit some other random person by accident, you get hit with a hefty bill that you have to pay in the bill section of your main PC. The two people you can twat if they come into your cafe are the homeless person and the thief. The homeless person will wreck everything in the shop if he happens to clip into any of the PCs, which is really annoying. The thief will try and steal an item and just walk off with it. The environment outside your cafe is very basic. All you can really do is walk around in a circle down the streets with lots of dead ends. The only buildings you can actually enter are your cafe, the apartment block, and of course not forgetting the strip club.
It is ultimately extremely limited gameplay and does become repetitive very quickly. There's also some mechanics that just seem unfinished or poorly implemented. For example, you can set up a kitchen with a chef in and the customers can order items such as burgers and drinks. The problem is you get a limited amount of money from this and it becomes completely unmanageable once you have more than a few PCs and consoles set up, as you just can't effectively manage the kitchen with that many people ordering. With all the collision and other NPC issues, it becomes more hassle than it's worth, as you're likely to knock over multiple PCs, dodging other customers on your way to serving someone. Then you have to spend time setting up the PC again so it can be used. Also, sometimes they order and then within a matter of seconds their time is up, and so they just get up and walk out before you've even got the order to them. You should be able to employ a waiter or assistant or something to deal with these orders. The hunger mechanic is also absolutely pointless. As far as I can tell, nothing actually happens once your hunger bar depletes, other than the annoying noise of your stomach rumbling. So you end up literally eating just to stop that fucking annoying sound, but for absolutely no other reason. Did the game start as a survival game or something? I mean, you can't die, so what's the point of this hunger bar? If you're going to include it, why not include a thirst meter or a piss and shit meter?
So in terms of UI, the UI is basic. You have a hunger meter on the top right, very important in an internet cafe sim game. You can buy food from the market stall with a choice of pizza, bread, or a donut. Below the hunger meter is an icon that shows you how much cash you have. If you're holding an item such as a baseball bat, an incredibly important piece of apparel for every self-respecting internet cafe owner, then in the bottom left are icons for use of the item initiated with the mouse button, such as hit and drop. Trust me, you'll be using hit a lot in this game. The mouse icons are replaced with keyboard commands when using the PC.
Yeah, the UI is basic and minimal, but I'd rather they have done away with the hunger meter, as mentioned in my rant just a minute ago. Obviously the cash icon is useful, so no issues there, but otherwise, yeah, just a bit minimal UI in this one. So in terms of sound and music, well, it's kind of strange that there's no music in the game, and so you just have the sounds of objects moving around and the occasional maniac NPC laughing whilst watching some hentai. Now I think about it, they obviously didn't include music, because that would have meant either coming up with some themselves or licensing some. Clearly both of these options require far too much effort.
Yeah, so in terms of sound, as Dale's pointed out, there's barely any in the game and no music at all. There are sound effects as you walk around, but for the most part, these are very basic, and sound effects such as the player's footsteps are out of sync with the speed that you're actually walking. There are sounds from the NPCs, Dale's pointed out, and mostly laughs while they're watching porn. So in terms of bugs and glitches, well, the game's fucking full of them. Too many to show, really, but here's a few of the funny ones.
Yeah, there's just too many glitches. I don't even know where to begin. It would take far too long to go through all the issues I came across, but one of the worst by far is the pathfinding for the NPCs. The customers constantly running into desks and knocking them over, scattering all the parts everywhere, which you then have to rearrange. It's just so frustrating. It also definitely started lagging for me later in the game when the cafe was full of components and lots of NPCs walking about.
So in terms of things I liked about the game, although frustrating, it was quite funny and it did have me piss himself laughing at times. Also, Hugh Laurie's in the game. He never pays as well.
So in terms of things I liked about it, well, I was able to get 100% of the Steam achievements, so that was at least something that didn't bug out on me.
Bullshit.
I guess buying and setting up the new gear is quite satisfying, and I did end up putting about 12 hours into the game for some inexplicable reason. It did also make me laugh out loud quite a few times, especially the weird looking NPCs and the thief sneaking about outside the door all the time.
So in terms of things I didn't like about the game, it's far too simplistic. It's not deep enough in its gameplay. All you really do is set up PCs, game consoles and arcade games in a very basic way, and then twat people that don't pay you. With a tiny bit of modification to the cafe, visiting the strip club and buying crypto, this is pretty much it, and therefore it gets quite repetitive quite quickly. The interaction in the game is far too limited. There's no NPC interaction at all, other than slamming them in the face with a baseball bat. And then the only other interaction is picking up and placing items and eating. The animations are terrible. Trying to hit people inevitably ends up in you hitting others, as the player's swing of the baseball bat is just weird and inaccurate. A lot of the NPCs end up close to one another due to bad pathfinding, so this makes it all the harder to pick people off that haven't paid you. The controls, as mentioned earlier, are really clunky and just don't make much sense.
So in terms of things I didn't like about the game, well, it does feel like a bit of a joke at times. Honestly, early on, I thought this may have been developed as some kind of joke or as a bet or something. To be honest, I still think this is a possibility. The kitchen and hunger mechanics are completely redundant, as I mentioned earlier. So the other issue I mentioned was the objects just scattering everywhere when you get near them sometimes, or when NPCs knock you into them. And that just got incredibly frustrating when you have to realign them all the time and reset up the PCs. The pathfinding is terrible, and the NPCs generally just clip straight through objects if left alone, as the collision is so poor, so you really have to keep out of the way sometimes, like standing in the corner to avoid them. Sometimes when you sleep, objects get randomly shifted out of place, and then the object have to be realigned before being used again. As the way the PC's setup works, they have to be in the right place for the PC to actually function properly. There's also an issue where some items get duplicated when you sleep.
So do you think there's any missed opportunities in this one?
I do find these types of games quite addictive, and if the devs could have just taken more time on, well, just about everything, it could have been a half decent game. It just needs a hell of a lot of polish, but unfortunately, instead of doing that, they seem to have just abandoned it and released Internet Cafe Simulator 2 instead, which is probably just a reskin of this.
So for me, the lack of depth of actual running of an internet cafe, it needed more depth in terms of the setup of PCs, and this would have kept me interested longer. Instead, you spend most of the time cleaning and tidying the place after it gets trashed and smashing non-paying customers over the head with a baseball bat. So in terms of scores, what do you think on this one, Dale?
Even though I got the game for free, I still feel like I got scammed. It's an unfinished, repetitive, low-effort asset flip game. Although, as I mentioned, I did get strangely addicted to it and put quite a few hours into it. Problem is, it's definitely not a healthy kind of addiction, and I think I did it mostly to get all of the Steam achievements, which I often feel compelled to do once I start on them. You might get a couple of hours of something from this, but I definitely can't recommend playing it. I mean, we do try to seriously review games on this channel, and although we like to have a laugh and drop in some memes sometimes, I feel like I wouldn't have any integrity if I recommend buying and playing this game, and so it's a 2 out of 10 from me.
So unlike Dale, I actually had to pay for this game, so I definitely did get scammed. So this game is both shockingly bad whilst also being strangely good at the same time. I would say if you're considering buying this game, do so with caution. If you're looking for an in-depth simulator going into every aspect of owning an internet cafe, then this isn't likely to be your type of game, and it will likely just annoy you. On the other hand, if you're looking for a simple game that will give you some laughs and somehow entice you back into playing, and that's all you want from it, then this might well tick the box for you. For me, it was funny at times, but it was just too grindy for very little little return on that grind. So for me, it's a 2.5 out of 10. Well guys, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment. Hit that bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video, and we'll see you in the next one.